When I started streaming, it was really more of a kind of thing where I just wanted to play the PTR and didn't really have any kind of specific goal or reason for this streaming. Just kind of wanted to start to get into it, just to dip my foot in, see if I liked it, see if I wanted to continue it. Now, I thought about transitioning there. I make a real purpose out of these videos, and one big thing that I wanted to maybe do would be showing off how the leveling has changed, how the progression has changed in PvE. Which is, a big thing with the PTR that's being changed. It's supposed to be a lot more streamlined in the earlier levels, a lot more variety in the content. And I was thinking about trying to show that off, except the only problem is that a big part of that is the new content with group-based, dungeons or adventures, expeditions. And the big problem we find here is that there's just not enough people on the PTR to really find one of these. I mean, in my last video, I think I was queuing up for the High Crest Insurrection the entire time that I was streaming, so that was like over an hour. I think maybe it was an hour and a half or something. And I just didn't find anything because there's not enough people on. So I don't think it would be really fair to show that, or to really, give a lot of commentary on how the early game leveling has changed, because I can't really experience a good bit of it, a good chunk of it. In fact, the only bit that I'm actually experiencing is most of the content that hasn't changed. And while I have experienced, a lot of the small changes, stuff that, is a lot of quality of life changes, it hasn't really... And I got kicked out again. It hasn't really been anything, too big. Unfortunately, that seems like something that's, if I were to make a video series on it, it would have to be after September 29th. When the PTR, when all of the free-to-play changes actually roll onto the mega servers. So, if I'm not going to be doing that, there is another aspect that I thought about putting in these videos, and that is as I'm kind of a casual, but when Wildstar did first come out, I spent a month and a half in a guild. I didn't go through the entire raid attunement process, but I went through a bit of it. I didn't get gold on all of the dungeons, but I did quite a bit of, grinding the dungeons, and especially the adventures for gear. And one thing that I might want to share with you all is my opinions and thoughts on simply how to be a better player in dungeons and adventures. So I think I'm going to start this little video session off with that, and maybe eventually turn it into its own video. Maybe I'll take, bits of video and audio from what I've streamed so far, and maybe what I'll stream in the future, maybe from the actual mega server game client, and make sort of a more formal video on how to just generally do better in adventures and dungeons. So let's get started on that by going over to some enemies. And what I'm going to talk about is a little bit on telegraphs. So here's an enemy, and right now it's dealing damage to me. It's doing a essentially auto attack damage, and then it starts doing a telegraph, right? Well, the auto attack damage is, at least when you're fighting it solo, pretty much unavoidable, right? Like, you can try and dodge it if you're a ranged character, you can try and hold them, stun them, whatever, but it's a very small amount of damage that you don't really want to expend any resources for. And the telegraphs are what you're mostly interested in, either interrupting or dodging or something, right? So, let me say a couple things about telegraphs first. First is, that telegraph that he just did, and that one too, that's a telegraph that is doing constant or, you know, semi-constant damage while you stand inside of the telegraph. And I would say there are two big different categories of telegraphs. Those kinds where you just have to not stand in it at all if you don't want to take any damage. I'm going to kill this guy. And then there's also the telegraphs where it only does damage or only does a stun or debuff when the telegraph is over. That is, its cast time ability. And at the end, if you're standing in the telegraph, deals damage to you, right? So all of this is, you know, kind of Dodori stuff. Everybody who, you know, plays the game for more than 5 minutes is going to realize this, and it seems kind of obvious, but what I wanted to really drive home is avoiding these telegraphs. When you have a telegraph where it's dealing constant damage while you're in it, you can't really sprint in order to get away from it, because if you sprint and it deals damage to you, you're going to get dazed and you're going to get really slowed, right? So when you really want to get out of one of those telegraphs, you really only have a couple options. You have, you know, a movement ability, or a roll, a dodge, a dash. And I'll say, one of the biggest mistakes new players make is just needlessly spending their dashes to get out of one of those kinds of telegraphs. Because let me say, those telegraphs that deal constant damage while you're standing in it are usually the weakest damage telegraphs. Oftentimes, you won't take that much damage even if you stand inside of the telegraph for the whole duration. Obviously, there are many exceptions to this, but still, you can avoid much of the damage just by walking out of it at regular pace. And that is probably the biggest tip that I would say for new players, is to not panic when you see those kinds of telegraphs, and don't waste your dash tokens. Because ultimately, your dash tokens, and also your sprint bar, need to be reserved for the more important, the more damaging telegraphs that you absolutely have to dodge, or your team's going to get wiped. Or, you know, you at least are going to die. So, that's probably my number one tip for getting into the higher level adventures and dungeons. Don't waste your dash tokens, or your sprint bar for that matter, but that's a whole nother, you know, whole nother session of talking. And basically just save your dash tokens for the telegraphs that actually deal damage, that, you know, are really fast, that you need to use a dash token for. I feel like I might talk more about this later on in other videos. Certainly I can talk for quite a while on avoiding attacks, including, you know, stuff like there are some telegraphs that you can't avoid because they just follow you around, but especially if you're the tank, you don't just want to, you know, bring them somewhere away from your group. You want to actually pay attention to bringing them somewhere where they're not harmful to your group, but you can still get healed by the healer, and your DPS can still damage the boss. And I really don't want to be kicked off the server over and over and over again. So, now that I've talked a bit about that, let's do a bit more questing, and perhaps I'll extrapolate on all of that dodging stuff and just being better at the veteran adventures and dungeons later. In case this quest isn't obvious, you'll basically worry about your crops, in which case you reassure them, or they'll try and, you know, talk like a fighter, slap them. Oh, no, wrong one. Okay, if they're crazed like that, then you slap them. If they're like panicking, then you slap them. The crops thing, reassure them.
And your report?
Challenge begins.
Okay, so I
Exiles
remember
always pull together.
the problem with this quest is that the bad vegetables deal damage over time to you, and that prevents you from getting more of these. But unless you have something to take off that debuff, there's not much you can do about it. It's alright though, all the challenges in the PTR are very easy. And by easy I mean they give you much more time. Well, and I think maybe the challenges do go a bit faster. It could be a bit of both. I mean, talking a little bit on overall leveling, I would say that I think I've been going faster. It's really hard to tell because if I were actually leveling a character, I would have been doing, you know, adventures and ship hands and stuff like that. I can still do ship hands. In fact, I might just queue up for solo ship hands, because ship hands are great to do on your own. That might be best.
Silver level awarded.
But I should be doing group content. Doing group content once you hit, you know, level 10 onward all the way through level 30 or 35 even, is really good for leveling and for just gearing up.
Gold level awarded.
I've been playing around on the mega servers with my main engineer and my medic, who's now level 43, I believe, 43 or 44. And I gotta say, the rewards for basically everything have really been vamped up. I'm seeing epics drop from just from random mobs while leveling in the world, which is something that like never happened before. And I'm seeing some really good rewards from adventures and veteran dungeon. Well, I haven't actually done any veteran dungeons yet, or veteran ship hands, stuff like that. And I'm playing Stalker. I completely forgot to open with. Okay, this is a lot of lag. Seriously?
Double kill.
this actually makes me want to just not have this kind of playthrough.
Begins.
Nope. Kill the Dominion soldiers. Yeah, I gotta say this lag is horrible. I was getting some pretty bad lag on the Mega servers too, but not this bad.
Double kill.
Like on Mega servers, PvP was pretty horrible for me. I was trying to PvP with the PvP event with the devs, but wasn't really happening. I couldn't really do much. Okay, this is getting kind of ridiculous. I wonder if it's just the time that I'm streaming, if I need to try and stream at different times, different hours of the day. Because there's so few people on the PTR, it shouldn't be from clogging that. I suppose it could be from my roommates using up bandwidth. I mean, it's not like we have pretty decent internet connection. But maybe I just need to do this when my roommates aren't even home. Oh, am I dying? Am I dead? Not dead so far. Let's just try and run away. If I die here, I'm totally stopping the stream. I'm sorry. I know I've only streamed for 20 minutes, but... Yep, I died. Okay, I can see this is really not going to happen. Like, I was being disconnected since the very beginning of the vid. Of the stream, that is. And I was just talking about, you know, being better at the game in general. Honestly, I'm not sure if I should be streaming like this at all until I figure out some way to make this better. I suppose I could turn down video settings, see if that will result in lower bandwidth usage, which is probably the reason why I'm getting this horrible lag. I mean, maybe. Or at the very least, you know, turn down video settings to see if it's just my computer that can't really take it. Anyways, I'm really sorry. I know this is only 20 minutes long, but it's like, what can I really do when every single fight I'm screwing up? I mean, obviously I'm partially screwing up my combos because I'm bad, but I don't really have any hope of getting them on point with this kind of lag. I don't really have any hope of surviving with this kind of lag and with being actually disconnected. So perhaps I will close the stream, and next time I'll just log in and do another little advice thing. Maybe set it up so I can actually show you guys some examples. Examples of interesting telegraphs or mechanics that you need to be aware of. What I really want to do is get all of the kinds of mechanics, tricks, and environmental hazards categorized so that basically when you go into any kind of adventure or dungeon, you can see what the boss is doing and say, okay, I know generally what I need to do in order to get past this part. But for right now, I'm gonna log out. Maybe I'll level up my main. I don't really want to stream on my main on the mega servers because, well, I'd be special. And I know that just streaming Wildstar in general is, a good enough idea. I don't know, maybe I just don't want to stream regular, ordinary gameplay, because I don't think that I'm entertaining enough to really warrant, an actual video of me just playing whatever. So, with that network error, I'm going to end the stream. Again, sorry for it being so short and for me not really doing much of anything, but see you later.